Hello everyone, Redbeard here, back at it again, and today I'm going to bring you my Shadows of the Change DLC predictions. Super duper excited about this. I'm a little behind the ball. You know, everybody's been on the forums, the Reddits, the content creators, the streamers, everybody's making predictions. Milk&Cookie Total War did a great video that was almost like beat for beat what I was going to do with a video, but so I don't want to make the same video. Yeah, you know, Loremaster, Tzeentch, Great Book of Grudges, they did great videos on this. Even Legend of Total War chimed in, and again, I've seen a whole bunch of predictions all over the place. But now I'm going to bring you mine. So, my predictions. So, I have what I think is going to be the DLC, and then I have an alternate too, and it, you know, there may be characters outside of even the alternates that are possible, obviously, but alright, so I'll link those videos I was talking about in the description, and, you know, I'm not gonna tell you all the lore and the nuances. I'm just, because, you know, that's already been covered by other YouTubers, so check those out, come back here, hopefully, and we'll keep going. So, the Changeling. I think they've set it up pretty well that the Changeling versus the Monkey King is gonna be this DLC, with, you know, whatever Kislev has going to. Now, the Changeling, I think he's going to be a Lore of Tzeentch caster, probably exclusively, and then, you know, he has the ability to change into anyone, so any unmounted character, so hero or lord, he might have a bound ability where, you know, you kind of click on the character that you want to transform into, and then you just transform. You know, we have the Cathay dragons who have this transform ability. I feel like it wouldn't be too hard to just replicate a unit that's already loaded onto the battlefield, you know? I'm not sure. Or maybe it's a little more exclusive, like you can only change into the enemy's lord or something. So, I think he'd be really cool. I've always seen him in more as a legendary hero than a legendary lord, but I do think they might have set this the stage for him to be a legendary lord. You know, he's always, you know, behind the scenes, disguising himself agent in my eyes, rather than leading armies. But, you know, I think it could work if he was a legendary lord just fine. It's just not typically how I've viewed him, particularly. In that mind, though, he could make for a great legendary hero instead, and, you know, maybe the Lord Egrimm Von Horstmann, who's on the alternate page, is the Lord or something. Who knows? The Monkey King. So, he brings a whole bunch of... He might bring a whole subrace of monkey warriors with him. You know, in the game loading screen, there's a bit on what we think is the Changeling acting as the Monkey King, but there's a spider monkey, an orangutan, a baboon, and a gorilla. So maybe there's 4 units for a subrace right there. We'll go more into that later. But the Monkey King, I think, well, he rides like a Nimbus Cloud. Maybe he rides sort of like a Disc of Tzeentch kind of thing on top of a Nimbus Cloud, or there's different ways that could be interpreted. He usually wields a giant quarterstaff type weapon. I'm sure it would do magic damage. He would be just a really fast duelist, you know, acrobatic. Might have, you know, these animations where he jumps around and, you know, lands on top of his quarterstaff and balancing on it. So yeah, the Monkey King would be just a very fast, very good duelist with magic attacks. You might bring the monkey subrace. I think this would also be a really good time to introduce the shadow type units, the martial artist side of Cathay that is kind of underrepresented right now. So seeing things like celestial dragon monks or kind of ninja type characters, what, you know, the guys that Clan Eshem learned their stuff from. You know, there's no representation really in Cathay's roster for that right now. So seeing, you know, units that are kind of stealth type units, or stealth skirmishers, or stealth elites, or anything, you know, something that the gunner runners and knight runners those kind of units, but for Cathay, because that's where they learned it from, right? So then, following the theme of Shadows of Change and these kind of obscure type characters for the race, I think Mother Ostankya is a no-brainer. So having this character who she would wield the lore. So in Oldhammer, she wielded the lores of ice and dark magic, but then later the lore of hags came around. So I think she'll get her unique lore of hags, but she was a level 4 caster wizard. So I think you give her 2 skill trees, right? One is the complete lore of hags, and at the end of it you get a greater arcane conduit. And then the second skill tree is a hybrid skill tree of different spells of the lores of ice and dark. She could bring all sorts of more mythical units. You know, that's kind of the part of the theme of Shadows of Change, right? Is getting these like mythical type of units, hopefully. So yeah, she would be a very good caster. She would have her chicken hut mount probably, hopefully, which would give her, you know, kind of like a single entity monster feel whilst being a possibly greater arcane conduit. So I think actually kind of similar to Astrogoth, but quite a bit squishier probably. Then Master Po. So Master Po is the foremost authority in martial arts within Cathay. So a lot of characters like Yin-Tuan, and then what's her name, Genevieve Odion, something like that. There's a lot of different characters, even beyond Cathay, that have come to Master Po because he leads the like kind of premier martial arts school of Cathay. So he would be, I think, a lot like a Gorda's backstabber, in that he would boost your armies, particularly Cathayan infantry, into the stratosphere. You know, because he would be teaching them how to fight better with whatever weapons, you know, whether it be melee or ranged or whatever. Just probably as long as they're infantry, maybe some cavalry, any type of unit that involves a human that can, you know, learn martial arts. And then for the free LC, now the words are twisted by a Lord of Change. So this could be like Dian Chang from Cathay, who is a former ambassador who was twisted and became a follower of Tzeentch, but it more likely is just a Tzeentch character. So Aekold Helbrass is a no-brainer. His wind blade gives him the ability to fly, so give him the think Malagor the Dark Omen. And besides that, he might have where he has a AOE heal around him, and there would be, you know, hopefully there'd be literal animations where, you know, these exotic plants are just growing up around him. But yeah, no mount or anything. And then he's just a highly armored, very skilled duelist character who, you know, maybe he has some bound spells from the lore of life as well due to his nature, but otherwise, you know, could buff up any sorts of Tzeentch units as well, and provide good casualty replenishment, and just, again, and some sort of AoE heal. Maybe not bound abilities, but an AoE heal for sure. Alright, so on to our alternates. Egrimm Von Horstmann is my utmost favorite Tzeentch character. He's the leader of the Purple Hand. He was a mage at the College of Light in the Empire, and then twisted. Well, he's so famous for like making pacts with demons, but then finding loopholes. He is such a boss. He has his own novel. He is just, oh man, he's definitely my favorite Tzeentch character. Yeah, he's got a 2-headed Chaos Dragon, Baldros. I would love if we got flavors of dragons, so like a Chaos Dragon of Tzeentch, and Nurgle, Khorne, Slaanesh, so forth, and they all have their own kind of tweaks to the stats. You know, like the Chaos Dragon of Tzeentch would have Warp Flame, and then obviously a bit of a reskin for each. So like in the bottom right corner, you see a picture I put up for Galrauch, which is very much a Chaos Dragon of Tzeentch aesthetic to it. Blue with like a bunch of, you know, mouths across its body. And the two heads, obviously. Yeah, Egrimm, he would maybe have both the allures of light and Tzeentch. May have a greater arcane conduit. And then a dragon. He's just awesome. He would be the ultimate, like, cult guy. He would just buff up cults a lot. But yeah, I'll put a link in the top right now. There's a video. I already covered Egrimm Von Horstmann a bit. As far as his, like, starting locations and how he would work. So, give that a check out. Now, on to Cathay. Yin-Tuan was a leader, or a captain rather, of a war junk, part of the Imperial fleet, that sailed to the Southlands, or at least attempted to, when they were blown off course by a typhoon, and Yin-Tuan and his war junk landed in Lustria. They thought it was the Southlands because, you know, there are lizardmen there as well, but that was not the case. So he ended up, him and all his compatriots holed up in a temple and then were surrounded by hundreds of lizardmen. And long story short, they, you know, tried to escape. A lot of them died. Yin-Tuan survived and was able to bring his story back to the Emperor, and then he was made captain of the Palace Guard. So, I think he would make for a very interesting Cathayan character. In Immortal Empires, he could start in Lustria in the jungles of the Green Mist, perhaps. Then, you know, he can start wherever you need him to in the Realms of Chaos. I think he would be interesting. Yeah, you know, he would just possibly help bring in more infantry-type units. Do I think he's probably the character? No. But, again, I just don't think we need to see a Cathayan dragon this time around. You know, I think everybody wants to see what else Cathay has to offer, right? I think the Monkey King is probably the go, but Yin-Tuan, I think he's a cool character, worth a mention. Now, Stepan Rasin is a Kislev character who would help bring out the steppe nomad side of Kislev, which, you know, besides Mother Ostankya and the Dukeless Forest, you know, in the eastern part of Kislev, there really are no start positions left in Kislev other than that. So I think getting a kind of closer to the eastern steppes location with Stepan Rasin would make a little sense, at least for the Immortal Empires. And then besides that, into this, you know, I think he just fits the theming of Shadow of Change. Not as much as Mother Ostankya, but he still fits within it. You know, he's an archer character. He might bring in some beasts like Hawks of Mishka, some more cavalry type, so maybe more elite horse archer variant of some sort, because he himself would be like kind of like a Marcus Wolfhart on that is mobile on horseback. I think he would be a very interesting character to bring to the game. Legendary hero Yabo Chao. So she took over for Dian Cheng after he was ousted as a Tzeentch cultist. So she goes to the Empire and she's the ambassador for the Empire. What she would bring to the battlefield, I have no idea. I don't know if she is even a warrior in any sense, but I think she's a notable character otherwise. You know, she might just bring, you know, whereas Master Po would bring a lot of bonuses to your units and armies, Yabo Chao, on the other hand, would bring more benefits to your economy and your campaign, you know, in general. Worth a mention at the very least. For the free LC, Galrauch is the first Chaos Dragon, who was a Lord of Change who possessed a Star Dragon and became this two-headed Chaos Dragon of Tzeentch. So he would be a very powerful spellcaster because he's technically a Lord of Change. Yeah, so he would probably have greater arcane conduit. He would have at least the lore of Tzeentch, maybe, you know, be able to pick some other spells, kind of like Kairos does. But he'd also be a dragon. So he'd be a very powerful legendary hero, mostly as just, a world beater not so much like a Gore does that, focuses on support. There are plenty of other characters I could mention, but those are the ones that pop into my head when trying to speculate on what this Shadows of Change DLC is going to be. Now, as far as like reworks to these races, Tzeentch, I haven't played a whole lot of Kairos or Village, so I'm not too sure, but I feel like their mechanics work pretty well, so I don't have anything to say on that. Cathay, I think their caravan system needs to be reworked to just be on par with the Chaos Dwarves. Like, add in units, more locations. So, like, instead of the heroes, you give us units from the good races. So, like a steam tank from the Empire, gyrocopters from the Dwarves, a Star Dragon from the High Elves, I don't know, Hippogriff Knights from the Bretonnia, so on and so forth. And then, otherwise, I think the Cathay works pretty well. Kislev, obviously everybody's on the, what are we doing with supporters train? I think the supporters is a mechanic very similar to the Empire's Imperial Authority, or that's what they were going for at least. That it just was for Katerin and what's his face, Kostalton, mostly, and Boris was just kind of tacked on. But I think you could really rework the mechanic so that it has a little more effect for every Kislev faction. But I don't know. Other than that, Kislev works pretty well in my opinion. Otherwise, their tech tree definitely needs a rework. The tech tree, for anybody in Kislev is fine. I think if, like, Boris Ursus starts outside of Kislev, they should have a different tech tree. So maybe there just needs to be 2 tech trees. Are you in Kislev, or are you out of Kislev? So, like, Stepan Rasin, Boris Ursus, they would both have this outside of tech tree, outside of Kislev tech tree, and then Mother Ostankya, Katerin, Kostalton, they would all have the tech tree that is based inside Kislev. So, you'd have to have the City of Prague to unlock the rest of this skill tree, or, the City of Kislev, or Erengrad, and so far, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for units that might come in this DLC, a lot of the big YouTube content creators have already covered kind of what's loreful or what's in the tabletop. I'll also cover some ideas that I think will work lorefully from what I've seen of mods, because, with the modding community, that shows what people would like to play with, what people think is fun. So, within the bounds of what is loreful, though. And beyond that, just looking at the roster myself and saying, okay, what kind of holes are there? Like, horse archers for Cathay, or more mythical beasts for Kislev, so on and so forth. So for Tzeentch, let's start with the character, the generic character. So we're missing melee variants for the Lord and Hero. So the Exalted Hero of Tzeentch and the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. Boom. Just give us the melee variants, and that would probably be fine as far as lords and heroes, as far as like the bare minimum. But beyond that, maybe we could get a Pyrocaster hero. So in tabletop, the Exalted Flamer was actually a hero character, but maybe the Pyrocaster was the champion, so maybe we could get the Pyrocaster hero as a champion. Might help you refill ammo, as your ammunition as far as any of your ranged units, or help buff them if it is near, make the fire more powerful, or give them more ranged. Anything along those lines would be great. Zongor Shaman could be either a lord or a hero, but probably a lord. Zongors, Korngors, Pestigors, Slongors. We expect to see that come at some time. It may come with these DLCs, this like quartet of DLCs that will cover Chaos, or maybe it'll come with a Beastman kind of rework. It's up in the air, who knows. But a Zongor Shaman would probably just have the Lord of Tzeentch and ride on a Disc of Tzeentch. And, maybe in the Beastman roster, you can take your, whether it be the Gore Bull, the War Gore, or the Bray Shaman, you could just change them to the God Touched variant. Maybe you could dedicate those characters. That would be really nice to see. So then beyond characters, looking at units, touching on the Zongors, because I was just talking about them, there could be ground units, which would basically be best of Gores, but, a Tzeentch variant. So they'd have barrier and maybe magical attacks and so on and so forth. So there'd be a shield variant, a dual weapon variant, and a great weapon variant, or at least there could be. We have models for that in tabletop, at least, as far as, they are from Age of Sigmar, but, we've already seen Age of Sigmar models used in Total War, so it makes sense. So shield, dual weapon, great weapons, like a kind of glaive halberd type thing. Then there are the kind of champion units of those guys, which are Skyfires and Enlightened. So the Enlightened would kind of just be on discs of Tzeentch, and they would be kind of an aspiring champion type unit. Maybe they might have bound spells, and would be similar to the Doom Knights. The Skyfires, on the other hand, please, oh god, please CA, at some point put the Zongor Skyfires in the game. Basically, think of it probably a unit that's more entities than the Doom Knights, maybe like 32 or something, and they would be an archer, so they would have a ton of range, magical and warp flame bow attacks, but they'd also be on discs of Tzeentch. They would be a friggin' terror on the battlefield. Good luck dealing with these guys if you don't have any serious range capabilities. I talked about Zongors and Gaunt Summoners and Magisters from Age of Sigmar in this other video, and how they could work in Total War if they were, re-represented for fantasy. So go check that video out. I'll try to remember to pop a link in the top right at this moment. So yeah. And Gaunt Summoners would just be like a possibly legendary unit. You could only get one of it, and be this kind of 8-man, I think it's 8, are there 8 Gaunt Summoners? Champion unit that would have all these bounce spells and casting, and maybe even a magical innate missile. So just a range attack that's just like a magic missile. Yeah, then also on the Sigmar bit, Kairik Acolytes, so just a kind of like slave tier variant of Tzeentch Marauders, just pretty weak, but they'd have barrier and magical attack and just kind of be a tar pit unit. Chaff, I think the big missing unit of Tzeentch that everybody's really hyped for, that would also work for the Chaos roster, is the Mutalith Vortex Beast. So I'll pop a link in the top right again for a video where I talk about the Mutalith Vortex Beast, but I think it would just work as the basically it would, to try to translate from lore, if the unit gets 50 kills, and it would have probably a Mortis Engine ability, so it'd be doing damage to any enemies around it. And so, whether through that or through just getting kills in the melee, it would probably need, let's say, 50 to 75 kills, and when that 50 to 75 kills happens, it might immediately just pop out a Chaos Spawn. So a Chaos Spawn will be summoned on top of it or next to it, Or maybe it's like a bound ability where you can turn an enemy unit if it's below 50% health, or maybe lower than that, lower than 25% health, and you can use the bound ability to turn that unit into a Chaos Spawn. Either of those, I think, would work great and would make this a very, very interesting unit. Chimera, on the same case, would also work in the Warriors of Chaos roster. I kind of like the Chaos Sea Giant. I was really thinking that was going to come with the Warriors of Chaos patch and was disappointed to not see it. But, there's always the future. I think it would work in the Tzeentch roster too, as a good mount for probably spellcasters. Like the melee Lord would get the Chaos Dragon, and then the caster would get the Chimera, because it's more magically based. Brimstone Horrors would be like a lesser version of blue whores, and they might have only like 2 shots of their ammo or none, and would just be kind of like a Nurgling level unit. What else? Fireworms. Fireworms are my absolute kind of favorite, I think, besides maybe the Mutilith's Vortex Beast. Missing Tzeentch unit. Fireworms, oh please. We've seen them added in this mod, and check this out. This is a beautiful, amazing mod. The only thing I have with it is that the missile attack is just like a dragon breath on this unit. I think it should be almost the same unit as an Ancient Salamander, but for Tzeentch. So it would shoot Warp Flame instead of regular fire. And this is the Greater Chaos spawn of Tzeentch. So all of Khorne has the Blood Beast. Nurgle, I think it's just the Greater Beast of Nurgle. And then Slaanesh is the Greater Fiend of Nurgle. Those are all the greater spawns, which have this kind of unique model. Technically, in lore, Chaos Spawn are... every single one of them is unique in its own way. But, you can't obviously interpret it just like that. I think that you gotta streamline it. So, the Fireworm would be the Greater Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch. Would act like a Warp Flame Ancient Salamander, and I think that is intensely cool. And then, to wrap up Tzeentch, there's the new Jade Obelisk units from, I believe, Age of Sigmar, that either their models or the Carrick Acolytes could be used to just make a cultist unit in Fantasy or Total War Warhammer. They could just use those models for cultists. There's also the Ogroid Thaumaturge, which has a really cool model. I don't know how you would implement that into Fantasy. They probably won't, but I think it's a cool model. And then finally the Chaos Dragon of Tzeentch. Again, seeing unique dragons for each monogod, I think would be very, very cool. Just kind of like the Greater Chaos Spawn and, the Greater Demon, the Lesser Demon. Just having that role for Chaos Dragon as well, I think that would be very, very nice. Moving on to Cathay. So as I was saying before, we're, missing the representation of the martial artists and the thing that inspired Clan Eshin, Gutter Runners, Night Runners, Snicketch himself, the Master Assassins. What from Cathay inspired that, right? We need units or lords or heroes that are going to represent that. So like Master Po is a start. But then, Monkey Warriors are another aspect of that. Or possibly we get some kind of ninja type like units, like Shadow Assassins, that could be very similar to Gutter Runners or Night Runners, but probably a little bit better. Again, like a Shadow Lord or a Shadow Hero, an assassin, basically. Those could possibly work. So for the Monkey Warriors as well, as I said before, we've heard 4 different types of monkeys in a loading screen. Obviously, they were 4 specifically. The Changeling was like, taking aspects of the Monkey King and spreading, misinformation propaganda against the Monkey King. But those 4 forms are Spider Monkey, Baboon, Gorilla, and Orangutan. So for the Spider Monkey, maybe you have like a kind of skink skirmisher, chameleon skink type unit that's like it's a skirmisher and it doesn't have to be blow darts, it could be a javelin, it could be a bow, a sling, maybe, and any sort of ranged weapon to make this a fast kind of skirmishing unit. Baboon Warriors could be the kind of lower tier variant, the melee variant, so fast, good weapon strength, maybe not so good in the melee attack and melee defense or armor department, but good weapon strength and good speed at the very least, and charge bonus at that as well. Let me get to Gorilla last. Orangutan, I think, think about an orangutan's arms. Those things are like catapults. So I think it would be good to have that as the kind of the higher tier ranged variant. Probably, the gorilla and orangutan are probably a bit slower than the spider monkey and baboon, but a lot tougher. The orangutan Maybe he throws javelins or throws rocks or some sort of throwing weapon with high missile strength, but also pretty decent in melee combat, but probably low-ish armor, or maybe the orangutan and gorilla are both heavily armored. So, the gorilla, that would be your higher tier monkey warrior variant with, probably big armor plating. And very much like the gore beast from the Chaos, just, high weapon strength, better on the melee attack and defense, and definitely on the charge bonus. Similar to any other monstrous infantry. But yeah, seeing different types of monkey warriors I feel is important. I feel like there should be a monkey kind of sub-race of units, not just one monkey warrior unit. I feel like there should be a handful. And then beyond that, things like terracotta warriors, onyx crows, jade lions are obvious goes. Jade lions would give us monstrous cavalry, and a monstrous cavalry mount at that. So, and they would probably have high armor or magical attacks, anything along those lines. Onyx crows would hopefully be kind of very similar to like Ushabti, but they fly. That's what I imagine when I think of these onyx crows, is Ushabti that can fly. I don't know what kind of weapon sets they would have, whether they, are anti-infantry focused, anti-large focused. What exactly would be? It'd probably be anti-infantry, would be my guess, but... And then high stats. This would be a high tier unit, so high melee attack, defense, armor, probably weapon strength, all that business. Terracotta warriors would they'd be like the Terracotta Sentinel, unbreakable, high armor, but they'd be an infantry version of the Terracotta Sentinel. I have another idea, which was Ancestor Warriors, so I think there's even a summon, I haven't played a lot of Cathay, of Ancestor Warriors, so maybe you could just make that into a unit. Doubt it, but it's an idea, if there's the assets already there, right? Then on to, rocket launchers. So, yeah, rocket launchers, I think we even saw them in the original trailer, Cathay for Tzeentch or whatever. I thought they were coming with the base game, and then they weren't there. So, think of it kind of like Trollhammer torpedoes, I think would be the closest comparison. Like, kind of mix that with Iron Hail gunners, somewhere between that, and that's the unit you get. As far as lords and heroes, again, maybe... Celestial Dragon Monks. That could be a full-on unit. Basically guys that fight with their fists, but have magical attacks and very high weapon... not weapon strength. Their weapon strength would be middling, but very high melee attack and melee defense. Probably 50. They should have some of the highest melee attack and defense in the game. They wouldn't be highly armored. They wouldn't have high weapon strength. But again, they're just super proficient in battle. They might even have the Swordmaster of Hoeth's ability to deflect arrows, but with their hands. I think that would be a huge part of the Celestial Dragon Monks, that they would basically have missile parry chance just with their hands. And then, if I didn't say it already, magical attacks. And then, so for Lords and Heroes, Celestial Dragon Monk, Lord or Hero would be cool. Some kind of Monkey Warrior, Lord or Hero would be cool. As I said, an Assassin, Lord or Hero would make sense. A more melee-focused Lord or Hero would also be cool. Because right now, we have, support and mage, and that's it, I think. So getting a melee-focused one would be good. Maybe the Lord is more of a palace guard, and the hero is the dragon monk, perhaps. And then maybe an engineer, Lord or Hero. So I think, what's his name? Shi Hong is the master artificer in Nangal, which he could make for a good legendary character, whether Lord or Hero, possibly as well. I feel like he would make a good legendary hero for Miao Ying, but I don't know. Yeah. So having it just a generic engineer lorder hero could be beneficial as well. So I think there's plenty to work with as far as missing Cathay generic lords and heroes. Now to talk briefly about mods, there's the Dead's Cathay mods, which add some really cool looking artillery pieces. So there's like this giant turtle shell that's also a cannon. Then there's a basically giant turtle, which in this case I think is just a dinosaur from the Lizardmen, with some weapon artillery on the back. Now, in fan art, we've also seen this, and I believe these celestial dragon turtles are loreful. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they are loreful, and I think we would absolutely love to see that as a unit. I think that's my favorite missing unit personally. So it'd give us a single entity monster that is also an artillery piece. Yes, please. And to end Cathay, there's a missing mount option besides the Jade Lion, which would give us a ground monstrous cavalry. The Kirin would give us a flying monstrous cavalry. So kind of an upgrade to the Jade Longma. It would be very similar, but it would have magical attacks, again, monstrous cavalry. Maybe it has kind of the same differences between, like, the Great Taurus, the Lamasu, the Bale Taurus, right? The Jade Long was just kind of the cavalry version that flies around as a flying cavalry, but with the Kirin, you get a monstrous flying cavalry that maybe, and if it isn't a unit, if it's only a mount or a single entity, maybe it also has bound spells. But if it's a multi-entity unit, then that would make sense, I don't think. But if it's a single entity and only a mount, then give it some bound spells as well. And it doesn't even have wings, it just flies innately off its magical essence, so it would definitely have magical attacks. Now, finally, to talk about Kislev, I think the roster was a little bit rough going into this base game, just with the too heavy focus on bears. Like, I think the light war sled should have been pulled by either horses or elks, and then had the bear sled as the heavy war sled, not just give us 2 bear sleds. Oh my god. Just the bear fatigue is ridiculous. Like, Katerin in this rework hopefully will get her elk sled mount, and I would prefer it if she just lost the bear mount, but I'm sure they'll just keep it in and add the sled on top. They've said that they originally meant for the Katerin to have her sled mount, and it wasn't enough time, which is just like, it's a little bit frustrating, but I get it. So yeah, hopefully she gets her elk sled mount. I think getting a unit that is also an elk sled that just has ice guard on it, so you get a missile chariot basically. I think that would be a good unit. Also, we already have armored Kossars with spears in the prologue. Can you just give it to the rest of the Immortal Empires and Realms of Chaos? I don't know why that isn't already a thing. Looking at some of the holes in the roster, maybe you could add more Streltsy variants, so like mounted Streltsy, for instance. I think, they'd be kind of maybe like Outriders with their rifles, but maybe a little worse at range and a little better in melee. Streltsy sharpshooters, maybe this could be like the halberd version we were all expecting originally. That's kind of a sniper unit more than what they are now. I like what they are now, but maybe we could get a more ranged halberd variant. Beyond that, feral bears are already in the game, so can we just add that again to the Kislev roster? It's already in the game. Just add it into the Kislev roster. I know I said bear fatigue, but it's already there. Just add it. And the Zargard are another unit that I just think are lackluster. I just think they didn't do Kislev's roster justice in the base game, personally. The Zargard are just, they're not really worth bringing, considering the rest of the infantry are all hybrids. So, Armored Kossars have pistols, the regular Kossars have bows, the Ice Guard have bows, Streltsy have guns. Everybody has a ranged option, and Zargard don't. So, they're really expensive and don't have any missile. They just don't seem worth bringing. I think you should just give all Zargard pistols, like the Armored Kossars. That makes a lot of sense to me, but maybe you give a Zargard variant that has halberds and pistols. Maybe. And then on the same vein as like Horse Streltsy, maybe you could have Horse Masters. So as I was talking about with Stepan Rasin, maybe you could have it just, kind of like, Marauder Horsemen to Marauder Horsemasters. You have, Horse Archers as they're called, but Ungol Horse Archers, and then an Ungol Horsemaster, just a more elite variant, basically. Tier 3 variant, or Tier 3. And then, if you didn't have, since we didn't have the Horse Light Sled, maybe we could get the Horse War Wagon that there's we've seen the tabletop minis of before, which could have more armor because it has like a roof and housing and everything on it, and just has more guns because it's bigger. Maybe that could be something, or maybe it has some sort of bound ability where there's like Molotovs thrown out of it, which on that same note, maybe Zargard could have Molotovs, or we could get some type of Ungol Berserker unit that has Molotov precursor weapons. I think somebody should get a Molotov like precursor weapon. Some unit should get that, I think. Then the Ergen cannons would be basically a mobile version of the Dwarf Organ Gun. We've had models from this from tabletop. It's a horse-drawn organ gun, basically. So, yeah, it'd probably be a little weaker than the organ gun, just for balance purposes, but more mobile. You could also have a variant that's just a cannon, like your standard Empire Dwarf cannon. But for more mythical and mystical units that this DLC would probably focus on, would be Hawks of Mishka first. Now, we already have a spell for that, but I still think we could get a unit for it. It would be nice to have a flying unit for Kislev in some way. Great Book of Grudges even said like a big owl, which I think is a very cool idea to be a little different. Like a giant owl. That would be awesome. But as far as the Hawks of Mishka, maybe it could be several representations that could work. It could be kind of like a bat variant. It could be just the Great Hawks from Dreka's Wild Beasts, or it could be like a Great Eagle unit. But in that case, I kind of like the owl idea better. Frost Fiends could. I've heard different representations. I don't know what's exactly loreful as far as what the Frost Fiend is. Whether it's like this flying ice manticore type thing, or whether it's like a kind of ice troll type thing, or giant type thing. I don't know exactly how the Frost Fiend would work, but I'm sure it would have ice attacks. Maybe it has bound ice spells. I don't know. But, there could be several representations that might work. Then there might be some more Leshen type creatures. Would make a lot of sense with Mother Ostankya. I believe there are mentions of Leshen type creatures in Oldhammer. And there's like the incarnate elemental of beasts. I don't think we would get that with Kislev, but something Leshen like would make a lot of sense. Okay, so for some generic lords and heroes for Kislev, right now we have a melee lord and a mage lord, and then a mage hero and a support hero. So getting a melee hero like a Drazina captain or something makes a lot of sense. Gets a bear mount possibly. And then a support type lord would be good. Maybe like a bear tamer or something, you know, to be a little different from the Patriarch, where it's more focused on buffing your bestial units and whatnot, and your cavalry. Although on the same end there might be a horse lord type, which is a archer type character similar to Stepan Rasin, or and you know, the bear tamer could be like kind of a generic version of Ilya Morova, who is like a super strong, the strongest man in Kislev, and he's a hunter and he has a bow. And then on the other hand, there are guns, right? There is gunpowder in Kislev, so maybe you could have engineer, lord, or hero. But I think for the most part, Kislev kind of just gets their guns from the Empire, you know, and the dwarves. I don't know lorefully of any really engineers in Kislev, but that could be a thing that really just hasn't been explored thus far. But yeah, I think that covers the breadth of what we might see as generic lords and heroes for Kislev. And then a final mention on the Kislev roster, just on snow leopards. So, I mean, the snow leopard in the game is more like a great lynx. Snow leopard's like my favorite animal. That is not a snow leopard. That is like a bobcat type looking thing. But anywho, that's a minor grievance. But so I think the snow leopard was just not done well. Like it should have innately had stock. If it innately had stock or vanguard deployment, instead of just being unlocked through Katarin's like skills or whatever. I don't even know if you can do it with any other ice switches or anything. I think it should have innately had stock or vanguard deploy. Like, the snow leopard is known as the ghost cat. It's one of the most elusive animals in the world in real life. Why does it? It bothers me that it didn't have stock innately, because the snow leopard would be a very good unit in the Kislev roster if it had stock innately. Or at least vanguard deployment, which I'm pretty sure it doesn't have, if I remember correctly. The other part is the snow leopards in Warhammer lore are deeply connected to the ice witches. They're supposedly like bodyguards. My thing is, instead of going so bear heavy on everything, like, why do ice witch lords, and Katarin have a bear mount, right? Why not just have given them the snow leopard as a mount? Now, lorefully, maybe they're just not ridden like that, but to me, that would have been a great mount. That would have been a fantastic mount. Why? Why did you put them on bears? If you weren't going to give them sleds, at least put them on the snow leopard. Rant over. Okay, so I think that finally covers about everything I wanted to cover, and this video is already very, very long, so we'll cut it off there. I will return to do my speculation of Thrones of Decay, even though all the other content creators and Reddit and whatnot are already on it. You know, at least I'll get to observe theirs and, you know, maybe come with a bigger breadth of information for my video, perhaps. Just listening through the community, through the forums, through everything, see what you guys have to say, and try to get the consensus of how everybody feels, and then just try to get the most thorough videos possible. Yeah. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you stuck it out this long, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that jazz. Love y'all. Peace.